morning, and welcome to Listen In Show. I'm Pam Holland, and today with me is Désirée Bayonet, who is also involved with the radio. Désirée, what is your position here at the radio?
Well, I've done a lot of different things. I've worn a lot of different hats here at Tacoma Radio, but my most recent position is that of program director.
Désirée is the program director, and we are here at WOWD-LP, Tacoma Park, 94.3 FM. Folks, Désirée shared with me in advance that most of her listening in was sort of self-taught, and a part of her learning to listen in was when she decided to go abroad. Could you share with our listeners some of that experience of making that decision?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, so shortly after I graduated college, I did what everybody else was doing, and I got a 9-to-5 job. Wasn't completely satisfied with that since I really just wanted to kind of explore my options a little bit more. Despite the advice I had gotten from my family, a lot of friends, to kind of stay put. You got a job, you live in D.C., really good place to build a career. I decided to join the Peace Corps. Really had to kind of block out the noise, even if it was well-intentioned kind of noise and well-intentioned advice from people who love and care about me, and really kind of, think about what was best for me, because I'm ultimately the one that holds the answers to that, because I really know what's going on in my life.
Right.
And, what I'm thinking about and what's important to me in terms of values and whatnot. So I made that decision just to leave my, I guess, somewhat important job and go to Senegal, where I wore flip-flops for 2 years. It was great.
And what was it like when you came back?
Oh, man. Coming back was hard. It was almost as hard as going there. I
would think there would be some listening in to do then as well.
Right. It was a little, off-putting. It felt like I was here, physically here, but, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I was, not here. Because what I had left behind, was still here, my life and family and whatnot, but it was different because I was different.
Right.
So.
Right. You were so very different, I would imagine. Can you recall any, some significant ways in which you think you were different?
I guess, I don't know, I was a little more patient. Actually, no, that's the opposite. I was a little less patient when I first got back. I think I was just frustrated with things. I don't know. I just remember losing my cool a lot easier for the first couple months. And I don't know. That's a hard question because I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's fine. But it was very unsettling, it sounds like.
It was unsettling.
Yeah.
And I was definitely emotions were like a roller coaster, up and down really quickly. My moods would shift. And so but I think that was just a readjusting. Over the long term, I think I learned patience and other things like that. But in the immediate aftermath, the immediate resettling, it was like that.
Well, what did you learn about yourself when you were there?
Well, I learned that I am capable of a lot more than I thought I was. Again, both physically, I was put to the test, and I had to ride 25 kilometers. So it was a lot of bike riding and tough terrain, and it's hot. There's no AC, there's no running water, there's no electricity, that kind of stuff. But that was not the easy stuff, but that was the easiest stuff to get over, the easiest obstacles. But the harder stuff was mentally putting yourself in that place. And so it was I was really wow, I did this after 2 years. I was man, because after the third night in my village, I was I don't know how I'm going to do this.
And were there others there with you, other Peace Corps volunteers in your village, or
not in my host village, but in the surrounding area. It was just there was a support network, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
But in my village, day to day, it was just, well, it wasn't just me. I was surrounded by people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The people in my village. So, in my host village, sorry.
And how were you helping the people in the village, or what sort of work were you doing there?
So my primary role was a preventative healthcare educator.
Mm-hmm.
But we were kind of just given free rein to figure out what was needed in the community. We did a needs assessment. I did one the first 3 months and figured out, kind of found my role.
Mm-hmm.
There was some, teaching of certain healthy practices, but for the most part, the thoughts in my village were kind of know that already. But I found my niche teaching students, so we developed a curriculum and songs and games, and we would go to the schools in our region, just ride our bikes. Me and 2 other volunteers, we did this together, and that was really fun. We also did it in empowerment camp. Another big thing I did is that started a radio show.
Ah.
Yeah.
Now we see a thread.
Yeah. It was my first foray into radio. It was on a community radio station. That's how I first got into radio, actually.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. This is Listen In Show. Community, conversations, connection. And you're listening to Tacoma Radio, WOWD LP 94.3 FM. You can find us first and third Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. and via podcast at listeninshow.com. So, back to when you came back and it was unsettling and you...
Well, I didn't like it, so I went abroad again.
Okay. And where did you go then?
I went to, I lived in Paris for almost 2 years.
Uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
uh-huh. And were you working or traveling? Or?
I was working. I was working as well, my main job was as a English teaching assistant. So I taught English to primary school students in 3 different elementary schools. And that was great. That was a lot of fun. But I also did a lot of odd jobs here and there. I was a tour guide for a while. Mm-hmm. I worked for a nonprofit that I had gotten to know while I was in Senegal, but then I helped with communication to the diaspora community, the Senegalese diaspora community, or really the West African diaspora community in Senegal. And then I got involved in radio again, and I started interviewing people from Guinea specifically, because it was during the time of a lot of political turmoil in Guinea. This is in 2009. So I was interviewing local either leaders in Guinean community or just people in the streets about what they thought about what was going on back home, but also about their lives in Paris, and to give us a little glimpse about how it is to be an immigrant in Paris.
So as you have come back here to the States, you mentioned in when we talked before that there are many challenges in terms of finding time to listen in. What would you say are the primary challenges there?
Oh, man, just like everyday life. I got a baby back home. Depends on me for a lot of stuff. So there's all that, and then just like all my different responsibilities to like my job, my career, my family and friends, and being pulled in a lot of different directions, and sometimes hard to like, when you're looking outward so much, sometimes hard to like really, look inside and listen in. Yes.
Great. And when you are faced with that kind of challenge, being pulled in many directions, which I think a lot of us experience that same feeling, is there any kind of practice that bring you back to where you want to be, given enough time?
Yeah, I mean, I started meditating for a while this year. I went through a course. I must admit I have not really kept with the practice. I'm a little disappointed in myself in that, because that I found really helpful in settling my mind. But again, it's just finding the time. And also do yoga, which I really like.
So are you able to do that regularly? Do you go to classes?
Oh, my goodness. I try to do it every Saturday morning in my yoga class, but the last 2 weeks I've missed it, which is so frustrating.
Yeah.
There's always something. But, it's about dedication. I gotta make time.
Right. And I think that's certainly a very common, almost perhaps universal challenge for most of us, is to make the time to do the things that we know feed us and nurture us and help us to make better decisions. And I personally think that it's as much about creating habits as anything else, and you may have said that as well. You may have shared that as well.
Right.
And we did have some suggestions from my guest last week, Eva Janata, about meditating. She mentioned that meditating was very difficult for her and offered some suggestions for what works for her. And one of the things that I think people can try is just to get up 5 minutes early if you need to make the time and just breathe. Just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe and not even try to necessarily calm your mind or meditate, in quotes.
Right.
Because I have not found traditional meditation to be all that accessible to me.
Correct, yeah.
But if you make the habit, if you can make the habit.
Of course, exactly. It's about making time.
Yeah.
And making time every day to develop a habit. I completely agree with that. I think something else I guess we had talked about prior to this interview was the idea of it being harder to listen in when you're still, but you prefer to do it in motion. And I think I can relate to that. I like taking walks sometimes and outside, especially if I'm in the woods on off the beaten path. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Because it's quiet and it just feels like you're the only one out there sometimes.
I think part of it is redefining what meditation means or what a meditative practice means, and acknowledging that you are perhaps you may be centering yourself as you wash dishes. You may be centering self as you change the baby. You certainly have an opportunity to, and we all do.
True.
I mean, there are certain things that I really dislike, like unloading the dishwasher, and it had never occurred to me that I could try to make that a meditative practice.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that one of my friends definitely chopping for her is soothing,
I can see that, yeah.
meditative, and washing dishes, hand washing dishes, anything done with awareness and mindfulness. Folding the clothes be my meditation for today.
Yeah. No, that's really great advice.
Yeah, and I think for our listeners out there, we'll offer that as our gentle challenge for this time around. Look for something that you do anyway, regularly. It doesn't have to be daily, but just look for things that you do anyway and consider, is there a way to make that more meditative or an opportunity to listen in? And I think you'll be surprised at how many opportunities we can create if we just redefine what listening in or meditating or following our inner guidance means. Because certainly for people, those of you out there with children, you're torn in so many directions.
Yeah. I was thinking about the challenge just now and realizing a lot of the things you've suggested are things that I tend to do while I'm doing other things. Like I tend to multitask while I'm washing dishes. I'm usually cooking and feeding the baby at the same time. So.
Or listening to the radio.
Or listening to radio, yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah. And I think the way to make it work is to commit yourself for a period of time, let's say maybe a week, to finding something each day to consider as a meditative practice, and maybe make some notes or journal about it if that's something that appeals to you. And then just notice, is this helpful?
Right.
Is this helpful? And if it's not helpful, then do something different.
Yeah, I think I used to do something like when after I would have to take that time out to really look inward and just be, like you said, more present in the moment. And I, but afterwards would not journal, I would like make a list, which is interesting. And it helped me kind of like, okay, like now that I've blocked everything out and just had like this moment, now I can move forward with like in an organized way. I always felt a lot better. So
yeah, if you've captured your thoughts and you don't have to keep them rolling around in your head. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, many people make lists before they go to bed, and I think another excellent practice for listening in, and Riumberto Rodriguez mentioned this in his interview, is a gratitude list. And some people do that at the end of their day or at the beginning of their day. Any other tools or practices that you might like to share with our listeners or resources?
Oh, man. I don't even remember what I responded.
Well, you said that being engaged in a physical activity often helps.
Yeah.
And I wonder, do you walk with the baby or have a baby jogger or something like that?
Oh yeah. Before when I didn't work so many hours,
yes,
I had more time to take walks. I would try to get a walk in every day. For my Fitbit's sake, telling me it's time to get your steps in. So that was really nice. Yeah, I guess the physical aspect of being involved in like some sort of activity, and my being aware of my body going through that activity has been helpful, and like just being more mindful. I really enjoy that. That's why yoga's so great.
Yeah, I was going to loop back to yoga, and I don't remember the resource off the top of my head, but I can certainly ask my yoga teacher and put it on the website. I know that there are some pretty robust videos on the internet with yoga, which is not, would not be my first choice for yoga. My first choice for yoga is actually going to a class. But I think that if you can't make it to the class, there are certainly other resources for doing yoga on your own, and just trying to make it a short practice, even 10 minutes. And I have just some movement exercises, not necessarily yoga exercises, but they're just sort of waking up, stretch the body kind of exercises that I got from a woman named Maggie Wong that take 10 minutes. Only 10 minutes. So I may ask her if I could share those on the
and I
have
have a suggestion. Buy a hula hoop, not even like a nice weighted adult hula hoop that stays up, because sometimes I have one and it's like, sometimes it's just like spinning with the hula hoop for a good 5-10 minutes just like helps.
Well, I think for me, that would also make me feel like a child again, which is a bonus.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think that's a bonus.
I just turn on like my Spotify and listen to some music, and it's fantastic. It's really therapeutic.
That's a great suggestion. Do you have special hula hoop music?
I do have a playlist that's like for hula hooping, but sometimes I just go do something new. Yeah. Well, and I think that we can find times to move even if we don't have the hula hoop. Right.
But we could still pretend we had the hula hoop.
Right.
If we're in the kitchen and we notice that we're holding tension, or we may have been leaning over and chopping for too long. As Désirée mentioned earlier, just being more mindful. I know that sometimes when I go to a number of different pools, but one in particular, there's a walk across the across some grass. And if I'm in a hurry and I need to get to a client, sometimes I'll catch myself hurrying. And it's not going to get me there any faster at all, hurrying. And in fact, I may forget to lock my car or something like that. And so I'll just consciously decide to not necessarily walk more slowly, but walk more mindfully and without holding my breath.
That's important.
I think our breath is, of course, something that's always with us and a resource that we all have.
Yeah.
In any moment, standing in line at the grocery store. So that's something we can all turn to. And research has shown that if you slightly extend the out breath, that helps to calm the nervous system. So if there's something that has upset you a bit, you can start with balanced breathing, 4 breaths in, count of 4 in, a count of 4 out, and then just gradually, slowly start to extend the out breath. That's a great practice for listening in that you can do anywhere, anytime, and nobody will even necessarily know that you're doing it.
For sure, yeah. I remind myself to breathe all the time during the day. Like, obviously, I'm constantly breathing, but to, breathe and be aware of my breath, I have to just be, I actually did it a couple times today because I'm like, oh, man, I'm stressed. Just breathe.
Yeah. And or get up and move if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you have to be sitting in a chair, I know that my studio audience can't see me right now, but I'm just stretching, just lifting my arm and stretching and turning it, and just noticing where you're holding the tension in your body. There are also some resources that I can put a link to from a woman named Esther Goclay, who has a number of movement tools, very short videos about, and one's called a shoulder roll, that just helps to bring you into your body and remind you that you don't have to be holding that tension in your neck or your shoulders, which is where. Thank you so much, Désirée.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. Now, the one other question that I do have is about the radio station itself, this radio station, WOWD. Were you involved at the very start?
No, not at the very start. That was Marika Partridge probably 5-6 years ago now. She had this initial meeting once she found out about the second LPFM window opening. I think this was in 2011. So she had a meeting with some neighbors on her porch. Wasn't there for that meeting. I've heard a lot about it, but I wasn't there. But I came in about early 2013 because I had seen Marika speak about this idea, Tacoma Radio, at a Here Now event, which is like audiophile meetup group. And I was very intrigued. Community radio station in Tacoma Park, my favorite place. Well, yeah, I don't live in Tacoma Park, but I have a fondness for Tacoma Park. So yeah, I wanted to get involved.
And so, did you start out as a volunteer, or? Yeah.
We, my colleague and I, Tatiana Safranova, we had just started this organization From Block to Block, where we were given workshops on audio storytelling to people in the community, and so we offered that service up to Tacoma Radio, to Marika, and so we were doing that as a volunteer basis for a while, and then as a independent contractor, I guess, in that capacity. And then we just started doing more and more work. It really picked up. I guess Marika liked our energy and was like, "Hey, girls, come and join me."
And I can see why, both of you. So was that the producer posse? Was that the first thing you did, or had you done other things prior to the producer posse?
The producer posse is the first thing we did for Tacoma Radio, but From Block to Block, we had started doing some other stuff a little bit right before that, actually. We were really starting out. And so we were doing workshops with Tacoma Radio, and there's been different, classes of producer posse. Are
you going to be offering any more producer posses?
We would like to. Right now we're kind of focusing on the one-off workshops where you learn instead of like a series of classes. You learn one skill in particular and in depth. For example, we were planning soon, I think next month. I think we're still looking for the date.
When you get that date, let us know, and we'll certainly share the word. Well, you did do, I also attended How to Sound Like Yourself on the Radio, which you didn't present, but was also sort of a fun event.
Sure, yeah, I was present. I love that.
Yeah, I think
that was John Nielsen.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he gave a really good presentation.
Yeah. So those of you out there who might be interested in becoming involved in the radio in some way, you don't have to make a long-term commitment. You can just volunteer for a single event or come to a single class. But this is community radio, and we want as many people as possible to be involved. And age doesn't matter. Your level of commitment is not, doesn't have to be high. When you had the launch, there were many people who came in and just searched for a couple of hours. Like
for sure, they just
I
wanted
had
to be
people
part
out
of the
there holding up signs that said "honk, honk if you love radio."
Yeah, they are getting the energy up. Our crew getting the energy up. Yeah, no, for sure. We welcome everyone because really this is a community resource, and we want everybody in the community to feel like they have some sort of ownership and muster.
And there's room for more programming, correct?
Definitely room for more programming. So.
And if people want to learn more about being a programmer is what I'm being right now. I'm being a programmer.
Yeah. Pam is sitting in the host seat and operating the board like a pro. She's programming.
So if you have any interest, you don't have to have any experience or a fully formed idea. But if you have any interest, have a look at the website. Ask questions if you need to. When you think you have an idea, fill out an application, and people will respond and help you out. And hopefully there'll be community events where people can come together and share ideas. There have been in the past. I know.
Yeah. It's like a forum of sorts.
So people can just sign up to be on your newsletter?
Yes,
WOWD?
Yeah, we have a place to put in your name and email address on the website, and that's also where you'll find an application to apply for a program and also the application and if you're interested in being a volunteer. So lots of stuff on there. Check it out, TacomaRadio.org.
Great. So you're listening to WOWD-LP, Tacoma Park. Be sure to tune in on Wednesday, November 2nd, when I'll be speaking with Marika Partridge, the heart and soul of Tacoma Radio, and you'll hear the story of how the radio was born.